Rabbe. I live in the United States. I've been in healthcare for 40 years, just to give you a little bit of background. I started out in nursing back in the day, and then I transitioned over after um, going to an herbalist who helped me with my health. I had a lot of health issues in my 20s. And from there, I learned cranial sacral therapy, herbs, and then I went on to become an acupuncturist and then to become a doctor of acupuncture and herbal medicine. So the reason I chose this topic specifically is it is something that I use in my office definitely on a daily basis because I've found them to be so influential for people because you're really getting to um, that level where you're working with the spirit and the emotion. Because so many times people will come in with physical issues, but if you don't address the emotional, you don't always necessarily get the desired outcome that you would like. So this is why I've really gotten into using flower essences. There are so many different wonderful companies out there, so I'm gonna go into that. So this was how it all began in my first introduction. So I've given you a little bit of a history. 6-month-old baby boy, mother comes in with a 6-month-old baby and doesn't make any verbal sounds, holding his arms close to his body, all constrained. And when you go through the history and you find out that the baby was grunting after they were born, normal pregnancy, no other issues. But when they were in the hospital, what happened was the baby was starting to decompensate and arms and legs were turning purple, wasn't looking good. They were actually at a more of a rural hospital. So the baby was taken to a different hospital where they were able to get diagnosed. And they found out that the baby had coarctation of the aorta. And after they found that out, the baby had to be life flighted to a third hospital to be able to get surgery at 5 days old. So sometimes people will think, oh, it's a baby, they're not going to remember anything. It gets locked in the tissues. And an Australian bush flower remedy was given to that baby. And 2 days later, the mother calls, slightly panicked because the baby crawled across the floor, went into the mom's bag, took out the remedy, unscrewed it, opened it up, put the remedy in their mouth, and started making happy noises. And it was the first time that that baby was making noise. So it was pretty profound. Of course, the naturopath that prescribed it, when she was called up and said, "This is what the baby did," she was like, "Oh, wait a few days before you give him any more." And that mother was me. That was the first time I was ever introduced, and I saw the profound effect of how flower remedies can be for a person. So for my son, it made a huge difference in his ability to be able to um, be more engaged in the world. And I've seen so many times, time and time again, where I've used the remedies with children in my practice or adults. And I'll go through a few cases where I've seen absolutely profound differences. So a little history, I wanted to give you guys a little history of flower remedies, where they came from, and how they've been used through time. So originally, many years ago, I think it was the 15th century, but I could be wrong time-wise, they used to take muslin cloths, nuns would, and they would place them over flowers at night. And then in the morning, the dew would have collected that was on top of these flowers, and they would take that and wrap it around patients' heads. And that would help to soothe them and help the patients. So in the early 1900s, Dr. Edward Bach, he was a physician, and he felt that medicine at that time was pretty brutal. So he went out and he said that most issues that people have, a lot of times they are rooted within the spirit. So he went out and he scoured the countryside and he went all over and he found the healing benefits of all these different flowers, and he developed 38 different remedies. And he really brought the ability of taking these remedies and making them available more publicly, because he learned how to be able to process them so that you would be able to have them in a bottle and be able to give them to another person. And now at this point, they are used globally. So you can go and get them from many different companies in many different countries. Okay. So how they are actually processed is really quite fascinating. When they go to pick a remedy, first of all, you have to be in a very high state of frequency when you're doing it. When somebody's going to harvest, they make sure that they have no emotional baggage at that time when they're going to pick them. They also do not lay their hands on the flowers when they are going to harvest them. They will use parts of the plant that they're going to harvest it from. So they'll take some stems or some leaves, and then they'll pluck the flowers off. They're then put into a bowl of water into the sun. And when the flower wilts, the essence of that flower has gone into the remedy. And then it is preserved with, most of them are preserved with alcohol. Bach flowers are preserved with vodka. Australian bush flowers are preserved with brandy. There's another company that actually preserves using a form of perilla. I've also mixed them up sometimes for people where I have used vegetable glycerin for children. Sometimes parents don't want to use any alcohol with it. Although even if the regular remedy has a little bit of alcohol, it cuts down when you're mixing it up if you use vegetable glycerin when you're preparing, which I'll go over in a few moments. Okay. So there are different ways that they are sold. So it's important to know when you go to research and to look at buying remedies to use in your office with clients. So you can get them in stock strength and you can get them in dose strength. So stock strength, you can take the 1 ounce bottle that you get and take 7 drops out of that, put that into a 1 ounce bottle, and then you put 2/3 water and 1/3 of alcohol or a vegetable glycerin to be able to preserve that. And then that becomes a dose strength. So depending on the market, you can buy them already as dose strength. A lot of the companies will sell them that way. But if you're looking to choose to use them in an office and mix them yourself for somebody, then I would recommend getting the stock strength. You can also sell, they'll have a lot of the companies already pre-blended blends. You can theoretically layer up to 7 different remedies within one bottle because they all do have different properties. So maybe one might be working on the level of unknown fears, and another one might be working on, and that would be aspen. Then another one, oak, might be for inflexibility, or those are Bach flowers, or wisteria from Australian bush for when things are just way too much. And you can mix from different companies. I've done that. This morning I mixed up a remedy using a perlandra, which was for the cranial expansion. I'm also a cranial sacral therapist, mixing that with an Australian bush flower remedy and a Bach flower remedy at the same time. And they were used to synergistically work together. So when I look at mixing up a flower remedy, it's kind of like thinking of an herbal formula. Yes, you can take a single herb and it can be wonderful. Just like you can have an apple and it can be a delicious, lovely apple and it can bring you nutrients. But just like when you food combine and you bring things together to give you even more nutrients and things that will work synergistically, how much more you can actually nourish the body. Well, same thing, how much more you can nourish and help the person along emotionally. So that's one of the beauties of being able to get a whole kit and being able to mix them up for your clients. So one of the places that is really nice to find flower remedies, I threw this in there because it's a company I use. I don't have any financial ties to them. It's just a company where I do get a lot of my remedies from because they carry a large variety altogether. So they carry the Australian, they carry the orchid essences, the Bach essences, um, and a couple of others. I also get Pearlandra essences. I get them straight from the company. It's great to just research and find the ones that you like and that resonate with you. Because a lot of times the people that are going to come into your office for help from you are people that are kind of on the same vibrational path. So a lot of times what you're working with are what people will need. So here's a list of some of the different flowers. If you look at the Alaskan essences, they do add gems in there and some environmental items also in there to help. The flower essence service ones, FES, those have essential oils in them. The Australian bush, those are my favorite. Those are the ones that I tend to use the most. Green Hope, I have not used them, but I do like the fact that they are not prepared with alcohol. So a lot of times when I'm using remedies that have alcohol in them, if somebody that does not want to have any type of alcohol because of either past experiences or, addictions or things like that, a lot of times people will still be open to using them on their skin if they don't want to take them internally. So that's one of the benefits of being able to use remedies on points or on the ear, is that you can use them even if people are hesitant of the alcohol. But then if they're totally hesitant of alcohol, you can look at the Green Hope Farms remedies. Okay. So this is one that I've had, this is called Emergency Essence. It is made by Australian Bush. And I have a picture there of 3 of the different forms that it comes in. So it does come in a spray. The spray you can use over a person or in a space. And what's nice about that is it has essential oils blended with the flower remedies. And so a lot of times people will have that, they'll keep it in their purse or pocket, use that throughout the day, or when they're having some issues. The drops, those are just the flower remedies that are preserved in the alcohol. And then the cream is also very nice. I've used that a lot of times with people that have neuralgic type pain. So that can be used very good topically. I've had multiple people with trigeminal neuralgia where that was life-saving, literally. So sometimes using it in that form, I can tell you that most of the times when I'm using Emergency Essence on acupuncture points, I will use the alcohol based. I won't use the cream as much. That's more if I'm having somebody that's having a specific pain syndrome. Okay. What? Sorry. So now I want to go into a little bit of using it with acupuncture and why combining it with acupuncture. You can either put it on the needles when you're working with somebody. For the picture, when I took this picture, you can see I'm using the needles with the plastic handle. Most of the time I use actually needles with the metal handle. And I do like to put the remedy either on the handle or after the needle is in, putting it at the base where the needle is going into the skin, or sometimes I'll use it specifically on body points without acupuncture needles. It all depends on exactly what they need, because I always go with whatever the body needs. Because to me, the person on the table, their body is going to know what it needs best for itself. So I always put that as the most important, because I can have all these theories and thoughts in my head, but their body trumps. So in talking about that, there is a something called aggressive energy. I don't necessarily care for that term, aggressive energy, but this is one of the things, taglines in acupuncture. It's a treatment that a lot of acupuncturists will know, where you're using basically the inner and outer, what they're called as shoe points. And this is just a quick little slide or two on them. And it talks about going to the yin organs. So it's the lung, the pericardium, the heart, the liver, the spleen, the kidney. And so it can help, this type of treatment can help on those physical organs. And then when you go to the outer bladder line, this is their lateral to those inner shoe points, and they work on those organs on the emotional level. So you can see bladder 42, that's going to work on the lung. Bladder 43, that's going to work on the pericardium, but on the level of spirit. Bladder 44, on the heart level of spirit. And same thing as you go through. So the Hun, that's the liver, the ethereal soul. The Yi, the intellect, that's the overthinking point. That would be lateral for the spleen. And then the kidney, that's Zhe, will. A lot of times fear will be the element that gets kind of stuck in the kidney. Okay. So I'm going to go through and explain a couple of different things that I've seen that have been absolutely life-changing for people. So there is a remedy called Boab, which is one of the Australian bushflower remedies. And it actually helps to clear out like family generational patterns and clear out lineage, stuff from the lineage. The story and the history, it's amazing when you think about the flowers. The Aboriginals would birth babies into a hole filled with boab flowers. And it is said to help to disconnect from any type of family lineage issues. And that's one of the reasons and ways that they use it. And that is one of the remedies that they use in the Australian bushflower line. So I've already used that, mixed it with emergency. Sometimes I'll mix in different remedies with the emergency if it needs a little bit of a boost, or other times I'll just take things and mix them together on my own. Just recently, I had somebody, a man, he had 30 years, he had terrible back pain, such incredible amount of discomfort. And he came in, smoker, drinker, terrible back pain, couldn't bend over, couldn't put his socks on. And he was here for his back pain. After talking to him just for a few minutes, I started asking him some more detailed questions about how it all began, when it began. And it had actually began 30 years prior when he was in a very bad car accident. And what happened was, when he had that car accident, it changed his life where he wasn't able to work anymore, which took away a lot of his feeling of being able to be a provider for his family. And he wasn't able to play with his child like he used to. And that really was still holding him back. That was in his field, and it was such a sadness that he still carried through. So the first thing I did not treat his back pain with a acupuncture protocol to help release the spine and all this other stuff. I actually did that protocol I talked about before, the aggressive energy, where I did the inner and outer shoe points. I acupunctured them. I did this all within one treatment. And then I took the emergency essence and I put it a drop. And that's a lot. to use, but I put a drop on each one of the dose strength on each one of those points that had the needle in it. That totally shifted his being. After that helped to take a lot of that stress off and release that from his body, then I came back in and did the back treatment. And I only had to do a little bit, just light, to open up the Taiyang and the Shaoyang. So basically opening up the spine and the sides of the body. It was life-changing for him. He really only needed that treatment. He came back in one more time, but he was able to bend over, do everything that he had not been able to do. And it was really the remedies, because his body was stuck in that fight or flight. He was not able to get himself out of that loop of being totally stressed out. And that's where using the remedies I find to be so important. I use maybe at least once or twice a week, I'll have somebody new come in that will be that over the top with their nervous system. So that's how I use it a lot of times when people come into my office with the emergency essence, to really get them to be able to downregulate. Because if somebody's body is totally stressed out, it's like they can't reorganize. To me, the body has an innate ability to heal. But when you're sitting there in shock and you're like, the body can't reorganize, you take that off the body can reorganize and start to heal again. And that's one of the beauties of using the remedies. Just checking my time. One other thing I wanted to mention, I had a child that used to come in. She was absolutely amazing. She would come over and she would go to the box and she'd pick out the remedy she'd need. And then she'd go and turn around and pick out the remedy and hand it to her mother, the one that she needed. So, and the kid was spot on. She would hand that remedy to her mother. We'd look it up and it would be, and her mother would be like standing there crying, like, oh my gosh, that's exactly, she's right. So they can be picked out energetically. A lot of times they'll just vibrate, the ones that need to be picked up and used. This is just advanced for anybody that might do any type of possession work, which is something that a lot of times acupuncturists do because it comes across in our field. I've used where people have had such a deep possession, where I've used two different remedies, one on one ear and one on the other ear. One is actually treating the possession, and the other one is treating the person on the table. And it helps them to unentangle and for them to actually realize that there is a possession there. So that's been pretty interesting and, life-changing for people when you're able to get to that level, to be able to get somebody to have that experience, especially if it's something that's been bothering them. Not that you always get rid of them, because sometimes somebody may actually want to keep it, and that's always their choice, because everybody has free will. So another way that I use them a lot of times is down the spine when wanting to release trauma. So there's the AE treatment, the spinal application. It's very important to do 14, which is like C7 area. Sometimes if somebody's had TBIs, one of my favorite things to treat is traumatic brain injuries. I treat traumatic brain injuries all the time. Then I'm also going to go up right at the base of the occiput at the do 15, 16 area and C7, and go down the center of the spine. Sometimes down to do 2. I've had to do 2 a lot. If you release down at the lower sacrum and you release up here at the top under the occiput, and you release those 2 points, a lot of times you'll release the entire spine and you can get a really good treatment. I've actually helped somebody with, trying to think of the name of it, when they get syrinx through the spinal cord, and was able to help them using the remedies along the spine, opening up do 2, opening up by do 15, 16, and then I did some Huato Jaji points, and then they stopped having problems with their blood sugar level and all these other things that were going on, because we were able to get everything to release and move. So I just wanted to put a chart up. You have all these different zones in the ear that correlate to the different organs. It's like an upside down baby if you look at it. So the head's at the bottom, feet are at the top of the ear. So you can go in and you can take remedies and you put it on the points in the ear, and you will actually get, it's almost like bathing the whole body. When you take a drop and you put it in the ear, and you can go through all the different points in the area of the ear. So if you do that with the emergency, you can get a whole entire body response by doing it in the ear. Of course, you know, there's also the vagus nerve and all this other stuff that's related to the ear. Checking the time. Okay. And thank you very much. Any questions?